Now we're going to move on to the social responsibility of corporations. Now, corporate social responsibility refers generally to the idea that corporations might be concerned with the impact of their policies on a broad range of stakeholders or constituents that are affected by those policies. And those stakeholders or constituents might include employees, customers, creditors, suppliers, or the local community. Now, you'll see when we look a little bit more at the basic tenets of corporate law, classically, the idea of the corporation is that it's supposed to maximize value for its shareholders. And that is really the only purpose, in a sense, of a corporation from a classic corporate law idea. And to the extent that corporations do things that are not maximizing shareholder value, they actually open themselves up to suit by those shareholders. But the corporate social responsibility movement says there's actually an important corporate focus on protecting and preserving the environment, labor relations, other kinds of goodwill in the community, and so forth. And so maybe there's a duty not just to shareholders, but also to other potential stakeholders. And this is sort of what's known as the social entity or stakeholder theory of the corporation, as opposed to the shareholder primacy theory of the corporation. And of course, some scholars have argued that when a corporation focuses on other constituencies, that actually does benefit the corporation as a whole, and it actually benefits its shareholders also. So just as an example, if a corporation is a good steward of the environment, chances are that corporation is going to have a better environment in which to perform its operations on into the future, as opposed to, for example, totally debilitating its environment so that 5 years down the road it doesn't really have a business model anymore. So the argument would be that at least sometimes paying attention to something other than short-term shareholder value may actually benefit the whole company and perhaps shareholders as well long-term. Now, corporate law does not impose any legal obligation on the corporation to behave in a socially responsible manner. Some people think it should, but it doesn't. But it does recognize that the corporation can do so in various ways. So corporations, for example, can make charitable contributions and often do promote philanthropic activities that promote the general welfare and so forth. Courts will generally uphold such donations as long as they're reasonable. If they're way out of proportion to the revenue of the corporation and they damage the corporation in some fundamental way, then that's one thing. But generally, courts will allow corporations to make charitable contributions. And there are federal and state statutes that now require corporations to at least pay some attention to other constituencies. So, for instance, we have employment law, we have environmental law, we have laws regulating consumer affairs, and so forth. And in fact, we're going to get to all of those in this module. So we'll look at the landscape under which state and federal governments have really forced corporations to pay some attention to something other than shareholder profit. Some corporate law has started to move in the direction of paying attention to other constituencies, and at this point, little over 30 states, I think, have enacted statutes that allow corporate officers and directors to consider the interests of non-shareholders in making their decisions. Again, it doesn't require them, but it allows them to consider it and protects them from suits by shareholders if they do consider these other constituencies.